Hello and welcome to another episode of the Jungle Gyms podcast. Today is Tuesday, the 17th of February, and we've got myself, we've got the two Jameses. Now, obviously, it's quite complicated having James squared on the podcast, so it's terrible nicknames, but we might have to go for Tattoo James for the man in yellow, and Little James, the man in grey. Guys, it was billed as a massive weekend for Scottish football. Now, I hate the term "a great advert for Scottish football." I fucking hate it because, as a Celtic fan, that should be your only main concern. Celtic, not the Scottish advert. However, obviously Celtic took on Kilmarnock at Rugby Park, and Kilmarnock had been doing quite well in the last two games. They had new management and they had something to play for because they were falling into the relegation zone. And whereas later on the Sunday afternoon, you had Hearts visiting Glasgow to take on Rangers, which obviously was a massive game. Whether you're a neutral or whether you're a Celtic, Rangers or Hearts fan, it was something that it meant something for the title challenge. So obviously Celtic came away with a 3-2 win at Rugby Park, and we know the result at Ibrox. Now, guys, you were actually there. You lucky devils had a ticket for Rugby Park. Tattoo James, just going to come to yourself. What was it like being at the game?
It was so up to half time. It was bad, is all I can say. The crowd was the usual away crowd, I felt, but it was just totally demoralising half time, and then Konecki came on and he did. I thought he turned the game really quickly. Or that's how it felt. It turned the game quite quickly. I thought Chinchara was really good as well when he came on, and once the first goal went in, it was the crowd really lifted, and I thought I thought it was really good, and it was absolute bedlam. I was at the game where Brown scored at the exact same, and I felt that was Sunday was more limbs were unbelievable.
Aye, it was an unforgettable ending, and we'll get to that finish. Especially you guys actually being in the crowd. It was one thing seeing it on the TV and it looked ridiculously good, but to be actually in that crowd whenever it happened, I'll get your thoughts on that. James, obviously, I think you got a ticket at the last moment. Is that right?
Aye, Friday night I got a message I had a ticket. Usual for me, kind of night or couple of nights before I'll find it. So I delighted with that. That's broke my duck, as I said to you before. My recent away record is horrendous. To be fair, I don't think I put much of the blame on myself for that. I think that was more down to Wilfred Nancy than anything else. But even prior to that, to be fair, it wasn't great. So it was good to get that Jonah tag off me now. So onwards and upwards.
Because we would have told you you're getting chucked to the podcast if you go to another away game if you didn't win. But guys, let's get right to it. James and Gray, I'm just going to stick with yourself for this one. The lineup. Any issues with the starting lineup whenever you were heading to the game when you saw it announced? So just to kind of run you through it, obviously Casper in goals, Araujo, Trusty, Scales, Tierney in defence. In midfield, that's where there was a change. You had Hatate coming in for the injured Engels, and then Kalmak and Nygren. And up front, you had Yang, Adamu, and Maida. So, as I said, any issues with that starting lineup whenever you were heading to the game?
The only issue I had with it was Hatate. I think everybody was kind of in the same boat with that one, as to be fair anyway. I don't know how many times you can watch Hatate put in that same performance and get hooked at half time. It feels as if that's happened the last few times, if he's not been sent off as he was in the Europa League. But apart from that, I know Adamu up front maybe came as a wee bit of a shock, but I know he scored the equaliser against Dundee, but apart from that, we've not really been able to get a look at him. So I wasn't against him starting. Shvankara, I think, has been all right, but kind of similar to Nygren. If he's no either scoring or setting up a goal, I don't think, obviously prior to the game at the weekend, I don't think he'd been involved an awful lot. So I wasn't against that, but Hattie can't wear a Celtic cap again. That's what would be it for me. But I've said that before, and he's sort of that top that won't push the new man, and he just keeps coming back. But I think that should be it now. I thought maybe Bologna letting the team down, and then obviously the performance that we put in, but you get a chance after it, and it's just I don't know if it's a lack of effort, a lack of desire, whatever you want to call it. But it just looks as if he's not trying a leg, which I'm really surprised about. And I've never been Hitachi's kind of biggest fan. Always, even at his best, he was massively inconsistent. I think he peaked very early in his time here. But I thought he would really kick on this year purely because it was a World Cup year. And unless he's absolutely certain, get guarantees that he's after manager, that he's going to the World Cup, I don't think he'll be going anywhere based off what we're seeing. And the same goes for his countrymen on the wing. And Maeda, his circumstances obviously a wee bit different, but that's Hitachi done for me. That'd be the last I'd want to see him in a Celtic strip.
Well, Tattoo James, we will get to Hitachi rather than leave it till after the game. So I guess before we discuss the game, Rio Hitachi, now under Martin O'Neill's first tenure this season, he was one of the three starting midfielders. And I know that we're maybe still emotional from the game, but I want to say that I felt that Hitachi did justify his place the first time round with Martin O'Neill. But now it's night and day. He looks completely unmotivated. Looks like he doesn't want to be there. It's verging on unprofessional. At times in the first half, it looked like he was okay with the ball, but his attitude is running. Whenever we are not in possession, that's what kills us. That's what fucks us. And Sunday was no different. I just find it quite curious how he was an asset under Martin O'Neill the first time round, but this time he's a complete liability. As James said, if he's not getting hooked at half time, he's getting red carded. Either way, we are suffering as a team with Rio Hitachi. How do you put your finger on that?
I totally agree, and I think that a massive problem. See what you said about Ingrin. I don't think our midfield can play with Hitachi and Ingrin because it ends up being a one-man midfield, and McGregor's doing everything. Hitachi has, I don't know what's happened because you would think that he would be really happy that Martin O'Neill's back. He's got ability. That's what's really frustrating. See if he was rubbish, then I could live with it, and he would just be a rubbish player that we've got. But he has got ability. Sometimes you'll see him pinging like a 40-yard crossfield pass and it lands at somebody's feet. And then the next time he gets a ball, he'll fluff a 5-yard pass and pass it straight to the opposition. And I think that he's been a disaster since Nancy, and I don't think he had a wee purple patch under O'Neill, but see under Brendan Rodgers, he was a passenger for many games as well. James is right. He peaked really early. I mean, seeing you think it back to his early performances where he never stopped running, he'd be chasing. He was almost like Maeda. Maybe not quite as much pace, but he was almost like Maeda, and he'd be hitting digs for everywhere. And he was a really good player. And it's just like he's went off a cliff. And the past 6 games, he's just been unbelievable. I think I would be better. I dig my Puma Kings out, and I certainly wouldn't be any worse because I would care. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't care, so he wouldn't pull on a Celtic jersey for me ever again.
Aye. And for Smooth the Glove here, how shite must McCowan and Bernardo be in training to not get ahead of Hitachi? I think that's another talking point because they're clearly not favoured by Martin O'Neill. And for Stubbsy, you're getting a wee bit of feedback on the pod. Sorry about that. I hope you can persevere with us. If we can fix it, we'll fix it. But please stay with us for that. I hope it's not too distracting. Right, guys. So let's get into the game. Now, the first half was dire, beyond dire. Kilmarnock just cut through us so easily. Little James, we know it's a must-win game. Every game is a must-win game. How do you explain that first half performance? Like, how could the players not get themselves up for it? And why were we so weak as piss, as Brendan Rodgers would probably say, in terms of our off the ball performance?
Well, it was an old timer to be fair. I think that was right up there with Fir Park under Wilfred Nancy in terms of how bad it was. I think there's probably a lot of contributing factors. I think the midfield, is James said there, Hitati and Negrin can't play together. Hitati can't play full stop. But I think that combined with Trusty having one of his miles off it games, I don't think Scales was much better. And then a combination of Yang looking like the old version of Yang that we've seen for a few months ago, and Dyson Maida just kind of being there, kind of putting in your kind of bog standard Dyson Maida performance. There was nobody really to kind of take the game by the scruff of the neck. McGregor tried to do it. I thought he was pretty poor in the first half as well. It obviously into the second half when Oxlade Chamberlain comes on, I think McGregor really kind of, it's almost like there's a mere trust with Oxlade Chamberlain than there is with Hitati and Negrin to do the work on the other way in terms of defensively. But no, it's a really strange one because it's no as if it is just like you say, it's no isolated to the one game. Don't get me wrong, that was the dregs. That was the worst I've seen us in that first half. But in terms of when you think back to like the Livingston game, Dundee game, any game really, it's probably easier to point out the games where we've actually played well this season in its entirety. So I think it's just a real lack of quality in the squad, and that's where you're then looking to the dugout, and that's where I take comfort in Martin O'Neill being there, because he's the one that's getting this. He's instilled this kind of never say die mentality, and he's kind of dragging his kicking and screaming up this league table, as he done in his first spell as well, before Nancy came in and kind of burnt the house down again. But it's really hard to put your finger on, because you seen the scenes at the end, and the players obviously care, they're invested, they're all jumping into the crowd, they were all loving it. And then you're like, well, where's that energy at the start of the game? As good as it is, and as bad as it is for the heart, but as enjoyable as the celebrations are, there's no better way to win a game. Given the circumstances that we find ourselves in now, let's just get the game deed and buried in the first kind of 20 minutes, half an hour, and kind of take it easy for there. But it was the same with the Livingston game a couple of weeks ago. Folk were saying 5-6-0, we'll rack up the goals and we'll get the goal difference sorted. I must be watching a different team for everybody this season, because even the Auchinleck Talbot game, I wasn't confident. I was confident it'll win, but I wasn't confident that we'd go in and batter in the goals. And I think it's just going to be this way until the end of the season. We're going to get dragged. Hopefully, we'll get dragged kicking and screaming towards this league title. But I just think this is how it's going to be. But as I say, that was an all-timer, the first half, probably on a par with the worst we've been this season, and it's really, really difficult to put your finger on whether it's just players that are checked out that we're having to rely on, Hitati and Maida as a prime example, or just an overall lack of quality and depth in the squad, which won't be helping either. But it's really, really hard to see why that's the case.
Aye, it's whenever you think of motivators, like Fotheringham looks like the most kind of infectiously enthusiastic person in Parkhead, and then you've got Martin O'Neill, who's a superb man motivator, and with people like them, like G'ing you up, and giving you your game plan, you wonder why it doesn't come until the second half. Is it pressure? Because the pressure's racking up now. We can't put a foot wrong. Is it confidence? We can all agree there's quality issues there, but they obviously managed to turn things around in the second half. So it goes to show that we do have the mentality to grind out these results, but why don't we have the mentality to play consistently throughout the game? Even the game against Livingston at Parkhead, we were great for the first 20-25 minutes, but then it became turgid. So we just want to be a bit more consistency. Going into the first half, though, the first goal that we conceded in 21 minutes from John Jules, he managed to kind of stand up Trusty, and the only way that he could squeeze in a shot was to put it on his right foot. Trusty just looked flat-footed. You knew that was the only thing that he could do to get in that shot. He still managed to create that yard. Trusty was far too slow. Whenever he kind of regrouped, he should have been more aggressive. He just stood off him and just hoped for the best. He got the yard, fired it in the far post. Tattoo James, what was your thoughts whenever you saw that going in?
So I think that Trusty was. I think on the whole, Trusty's improved a lot this season. Right, he's played. Maldini to Ambrose. It's terrifying, right? That's 100% correct, because he plays really well, and then he's got this guy, and you're shouting for him to show him the outside, because he's only got a right fit, this boy, and he shows him inside instead of down the line, which it makes up his mind. It was reminiscent. I don't know if you remember it. No, last season, the season before, when Rangers beat us 3 each, and Yang showed. I can't even remember the player's name. Showed him on the inside, and the boy just cut inside and whipped it in, and he equalised the third goal. And Matondo, that was who it was. It was Matondo.
Sorry,
and that's, see if you get somebody that's right fitted, you show them onto the left foot. That's the first thing you get taught at school. You show them onto the left foot all the time, and Trusty showed them onto his right, and it was some hit for the boy right enough, and I think that young boy's he's got talent. I don't know if he'll make it. I don't know if he's an Arsenal youth, isn't he? Not Arsenal. I don't know if he'll make it to Arsenal, but it was. I don't know if he'll make it Arsenal, but I think he's got talent. He hit the crossbar in the second half. I don't know about you, James, but my heart was in my mouth, because I've got very little confidence in Schmeichel, but I don't know if Sinisalo's any better. Because the second goal was classic Schmeichel. He's obviously trying to protect that shooter.
Yeah.
He's obviously trying to protect that shooter, and he's leading with that hand to try and. Crazy.
Aye, well, the second goal was quite similar, as you said. It kind of came from the same position, 28 minutes, and there was obviously, we allowed the ball again to get into the final third, but the ball came to Scales, and he had a piss poor clearance. He passed it right into the danger area, and it back to John Jules, who's confronted by Trusty again, and he chips in a wee ball into the 6-yard box, and it goes to a boy, Hugel, and who connects with it with a looping header going backwards. He has his back to goal, and he manages to get a yard on Scales, and then head it backwards. And by this point, Casper is off his line by a yard, and then he just it made him look like a bad goalkeeper to concede that type of goal. He flails at it, and the ball just kind of meekly dinks over him. James, whenever you saw that in the stadium, we're down 2-0, 20, not even half an hour gone. What's your thoughts on that?
It was like pub team goalkeeping. I don't know if that's probably harsh on pub teams. He's either got to come out. I don't even really know what he's trying to do, because he kind of half comes but then stops, and he's not on his line, but he's not quite there for getting anything either. He's either got to come out for the initial ball and just wipe everybody out, Scales, the Kilmarnock player, the law,
come with
take
violence.
the ball.
Yeah.
Come with violence, aye.
Yeah.
And then even when the guy wins the header, the ball actually bounces before it goes across the line. And in that time, Schmeichel's managed to pull a dive like a fish out of water, and then lying in the ground watching the ball go across the line, and even watching it back. Kind of similar, going back many moons ago, but remember when Cha scored the own goal against, was it Rennes? The back pass to Forster that just went past them, and then it was like time stood still as the ball trickled into the back of the net. I still maintain that if Fraser Forster ran back, he would have got that. And even in the stadium, when I'm standing watching it, I'm like, if he just shifted his feet, he would have caught that as the ball's coming down. He doesn't need to dive for it. But to then dive for it with his wrong arm, which then impairs him in terms of obviously reaching for it, and then he's lying in the ground watching the ball cross the line, and I'm just thinking, what are we doing here? But like you say, it's not really kind of anything new. And then even into the second half, when I can't remember if it was 2-1 or we just scored the second goal, but pretty much right after it, twice he gave the ball away for his kickouts, for his Bammy kickouts again, which that was always his strong suit, but now it's becoming more a
A lot
hindrance than a help.
It's
And these
becoming
kind
a
of
liability.
these kind of skimmy daisy cutter like punts that he's doing, trying to find the fullback. And as much as it might look cool or whatever, but I'm like, you're just when he's taking that and he's now under pressure, and he's doing it all the time. And he's becoming. It is a strange one though, because like was it Livingston game? He pulled off a couple of good saves, against Dundee as well. But then he does shit like that at the weekend, and like you're saying, the free kick as well, pulling his horns away as if it's gone miles over, and then it's good in the barn. You're like, that's like schoolboy stuff, but it just seems to happen. But the flip side of it is, I'm not convinced with Sinisalo either.
No.
I don't think he's been bad, but I don't think he's covered himself in glory either, and I don't think he's that kind of commanding figure. Like him saying, like coming with violence, as you said, Gav, coming out all blood and snorters and just wiping everybody out for that second goal. I don't see Sinisalo being that kind of guy either, and that's what I want in a goalie. I just want him to come and take everything.
If a goalie comes, he's got to take everything. And so the way Schmeichel, he came half out, and then he was flat-footed because there was, as you rightly said, James, there was no power in that header, no power at all. And it looked over him, and for where we were, it looked as if it brushed his gloves. I don't know how it looked on the TV, because you probably have seen it 1,000 times, but it looked like it almost brushed his glove. And so if he'd went with his correct hand, I think he would have kept it out, even with the dodgy spring that was no high enough because he was flat-footed. I think if he went with the right hand, he would have kept it out. The way that he motioned that the free kick was going over, and it rattled the face of the bar. It was a proper one. When he first came, my thoughts on him was, because we all loved Joe Hart, right? But Joe Hart wasn't the greatest with the ball at his feet. And see, for the first 6-8 months, Schmeichel was outstanding. It was like a sand wedge. He would get the ball come back to him, and he would just dink it over the top to fullbacks bombing on. Or maybe that's just my memory, and it wasn't. But that's how I remember him. But this season, it's been the amount of times he's gave the ball away when it's my heart's in my mouth now. Every time the ball goes back to him.
Right. Now he looks as if he's ate all the sand wedges.
Oh,
sees after.
Nice
No,
one,
but
nice
see, to be fair, see the Schmeichel thing. I think McGinty moans like fuck anyway. But I think we kind of maybe shared the same opinion that he was a good goalie. He probably was a good goalie, or at that time still was a good goalie. But I always found the notion of replacing a guy that was retiring in Joe Hart with a guy a year older than him. I always found that logic strange. I mean, are we going to go back to Fraser Forster and then Craig Gordon, then we'll maybe move on to Gordon Marshall in a few years? Is that just how it's going to be? Because the link at the time was the guy for Livakovic, was it Dinamo Zagreb? And then all of a sudden again, at that time, obviously we're dipping into Brendan Rodgers' contact book. So it's going to be a position that we'll need to strengthen in the summer. Obviously he's out of contract anyway, so we're going to need somebody else regardless. But I honestly wouldn't be surprised, just with the sheer number. I know we're going off on a tangent, but just with the sheer number of bodies that we need in the summer, it genuinely wouldn't surprise me if we go in for Fraser Forster or something like that.
We need 2 goalies in the summer. Because see, if Sinisalo's not going to be our first choice, he isn't going to want to be our second choice, because he's an international keeper. So if he's not going to be our first choice, we need 2 goalies in the summer. We need it's an absolutely terrifying transfer window.
Yeah.
There you go. Craig Gordon and Fraser Forster on a free.
Okay. Smell the glove. Will Celtic ever get a monster of a goalie who dominates his box from crosses, or are we stuck with this outplaying outshite? Or are we stuck with this outplaying outshite? Yeah, I've just repeated myself again. I was actually going to ask that at the end after we got through the game, but I guess it is a kind of good moment to say, James, in terms of like your reaction whenever Casper was going to be announced as the next goalie, I've got this kind of habit of maybe sometimes getting things wrong in my first reaction, and then I'm willing to change my mind. I was not happy bringing in Kasper Schmeichel to replace Joe Hart because of the age factor. But I think first season, as Tattoo James was saying, he was very impressive, albeit, we were a ball here away from getting a treble, and Schmeichel had a helping hand in that, shall we say. But Schmeichel was very, very good overall. I think he's a very, very good shot stopper, but there's a lot of other things that come with his game which aren't very good, especially now because he's got that gammy shoulder, and like I think everybody knows it now. He seems so reluctant to dive to that side where he might injure himself. He's doing everything he can to contort his body in a way where he's not going to cause damage. And I think it's come to that stage where we're grateful to Casper for what he's done, but at the same time, we're happy to say goodbye to him in the summer. Would anyone disagree with that?
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
It will be difficult, though, to bring in two goalkeepers, one who's good enough to be your number one, and one who's maybe got potential, who's not going to be a liability whenever he has to be called up. So getting back to the game itself, just before it went to half-time, there were two opportunities for Celtic. There was one where Dies and Maida, there was a bit of I think it was good play for Celtic, and he managed to get a shot away in the 6-yard box. He hit it straight to the keeper or a defender, and it went away for what a chance. I just thought maybe someone like Nygren in that position, his time just kind of slows down with Nygren in the box, and he somehow manages to find a way. But albeit it was Maida, so you know mostly what's going to happen. And the other one was a corner right at the end, just before half-time, a Celtic corner, and Liam Scales got onto it at the near post, and he had a glancing header to the far post. It just went wide, and I thought that was our moment, that if we're going to win the game, we need to score just before half-time. That's where I had almost thrown in the towel for the 3 points. At that point, I just think for us to score 3 goals when we're playing so badly, it's just not going to be our day. That was my thoughts. But Tattoo James, half-time at Rugby Park, what was the mood like in the crowd?
It was much like what you imagined. The mood was like. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. There was lots of grumblings, lots of discontent, shall we say? Lots of discontent.
I've got to say though, I heard the fans in the second half, even though we were still 2-0 down, they started singing and they were in full voice. I'm like, fucking good, man, that's good. At least somebody's got a sense of humour.
I think that's when we're at our best. I think as fans, but the good thing was that the goal went in quite early in the second half. So the Tanecki strike, which was a topper, was very early in the second half, which meant that you had something to get in the back. It reminded me a lot of, I don't know if you remember the game, we actually drew it 3 each, and I think it was Kilmarnock again, under Neil Lennon, and that was that game, even though it was a draw, it was the catalyst that went on for us to build on it, and we won the league that year. I know that was the year that Rangers died, but we were already overtaking them before any points get taken off, and that was the game that 3-3. So I thought we played really poor in the first half. I thought Kilmarnock, I don't mean this is an excuse, right? But I'm playing 5-a-side pitches at the pits in Paisley that are better than Kilmarnock's park. That's not an excuse because they need to play in it, because it annoys me when people like Neil McCann talks about 7 minutes. He does know that his team were allowed to play in the 7 minutes and all, and his team could have scored in the 7 minutes, and it should have been a lot more than 7 minutes, or that's how it felt to me in the stadium. I don't know about you, James.
Aye, definitely.
In fact, I think actually a few Celtic Twitter accounts had put together that it should have been more. They actually they listed all the stoppages in the second half, the substitutions, the time wasting, the referee having to tail off the Kilmarnock players for the time wasting, the goals, the celebrations, everything, and it should have been more like 9 minutes at least. So I think people will moan when it suits, but anyway. Right, so in the second half, obviously we made the substitutions. Chvanchara, Tanecki and Oxlade, Chamberlain came on for Adamu, Yang and Tatate. I felt Adamu just never really got going at all. Yang, sometimes you might get a performance out of Yang, but it's again not been one of his days. And Hatate, the less said about him, the better. So the first goal, Tinetke, as you said, Tattoo James, it was is it turning into a trademark goal for Tinetke, because he scored a carbon copy of that against Talbot on the same pitch at Rugby Park. And I think Tinetke also made his debut at Rugby Park, and although he never scored that day, he got a man of the match performance. I think sometimes some players just like playing in certain parks, and fortunately for Tinetke, he's able to perform on plastic pitches, which really helps us because not everybody likes that. But it was a fantastic shot from outside box, as I said, reminiscent of the Talbot goal. What was it like whenever it went in? Because that was 56 minutes, so plenty of time.
There's a wee guy sits beside me at Celtic Park, and years ago we went behind to Dundee, and he said it was like 40 minutes left, and he said, we've got 20 minutes to score, and then 20 minutes to score a second one. So I kind of was like, right, okay, so it's not a panic, right? It's not a panic yet. So when that went in at 56, it was like, right, okay, we've still got more than half an hour, and we've only got to score 2 goals, right? And then that was in my head, and so that it was absolute bedlam. I think Tinetke is a far better player when he comes on as a sub. I don't know if he's quite at the level to be starting games, but when he comes on as a sub, he's something different. He's got a bit more pace, he's got a bit of trickery, he's got a bit more about him than Maeda, who's probably ran that fullback ragged for 50 minutes. He's not produced anything, but he still ran him ragged. And then Tinetke comes on and he's something different. And I think I think Tinetke always looks like a better player when he comes on, when he starts. I don't think it's like McCowan. I don't think McCowan's good enough to start, but I think he's okay to come on as a sub when the game, just because he's something a wee bit different. He's got when he cut inside, and it left his foot, it had goal over it. It was one of these shots that had goal over it as soon as it left its boot. We knew it was in as soon as it left his boot. It was obviously we were right behind the goal, and it was awesome. It was great. And as James said about in Grin, the time slows down. I know you're going to go into the second goal, but time kind of when it fell to him for the second, it 100%. Time just slows. People say, if all he does is score goals. Well, you know what? Play on every game then. But Callum needs another midfielder beside him, somebody that's going to help him with the work.
Yeah, absolutely. The kind of complexion of the midfield was obviously not going for us, but it's up for grabs with Engels being out. So James, obviously sitting where you were, you managed to see all 3 goals go in. That one from Tinetke, brilliant, and as Tattoo James said, he's got something about him. He's really good at carrying the ball, I feel, and he's always got the threat of cutting on to his right, but he's equally happy to go down the byline. I know that you might not like this, but I appreciate that he might be an upgrade on Palmer. So
that's a low bar.
Very, very low bar.
2 years. I need addresses after this, Gav.
James, moving on to the second goal, 64 minutes. So obviously it was Nygren who scored the goal, but I felt that this goal and the final goal, which we will get to, this came from Route 1. It was a throw-in, which we just never play Route 1 football. And I'm glad that this happened. The second and the third goal were Route 1 plays. So it came from a long throw-in to Chvanchara, who caused havoc. He had about 2, maybe 3 defenders around him, and he never won the ball, but neither did the Kilmarnock players because of his height. Just his presence there managed to nullify them being able to head the ball out, and the ball kind of almost went over his shoulder, and it was Nygren who was ghosting into the 6-yard box. I don't know if he kind of shuffled it from left to right or right to left and then poked it through, but it was just an untypical Celtic goal. It's almost like the types of goal that we concede in domestic games, and at that point it's fully much game on 2 each.
That literally was what I said on and watching it after it. Like, because I actually thought it was offside. I know you can't be offside for a shy, but I thought it was Schwankara that headed the own. And then obviously when it gets gave, that's word for word what I said. I was like, that's like a goal that we concede. I said in Europe. That's when I think I say like conceding in Europe. It's always either a big long ball into the box and then there's a mix up at the back and they benefit from it. It never seems to go in our favour. And that's good. I like that we can do that now. We can mix it up a bit. It's something that we've missed for ages. We've said about getting a bit of stealing the midfield, which we still don't have. But I've also wanted a target man for a while, and I know he said that Schwankara isn't necessarily a target man, but when you're 9'7", naturally the ball's going to get played up to you. So I was delighted with it, and like you say, I know he doesn't kind of win the header as such, but he does really, really well. I'd kind of give him the assist for it, sets up the second goal, and then obviously goes on to do really well for the third. But just on the second half and the subs as well, like we were saying, for us how bad we were in the first half, whether that's just, I think in large part it was down to the midfield. And I've said on here before about Callum McGregor, and sometimes people get torn into him, and I was getting really torn into him in the first half because he was annoying me because it was all the point and stuff was coming out, and then it was like I've said that, I think I said it in the group chat. The kind of last kind of wee while, he's like a rugby player. He'll drive forward a few yards and then pass it back into the side. But the second half, when Oxlade-Chamberlain came on, it was like a lot more trust between, from McGregor to Oxlade-Chamberlain. Which kind of freed up McGregor, and he was able to do what you would kind of typically associate with Callum McGregor, and getting his foot on the ball and driving the team forward. And even Oxlade-Chamberlain, don't get me wrong, he looked a wee bit rusty, which is only going to be natural. He did kind of get away a couple of times, but the first thing that he done when he came on, he picked up the ball. Don't get me wrong, it came to nothing, but he turned and he just knocked a ball in behind for Schwankara, somebody to run onto, and he didn't get there. But I'm like, that's what we're missing. We're trying to score the perfect goal. It just seemed to be try and work it out wide and then just hope for something to happen. There was no kind of, like you say, that kind of route one aspect to it. I find it hard to judge Adamu because he didn't get any service, and obviously he was kind of non-existent in the game. And then when Schwankara come on, he's making things happen himself. So in terms of what you were saying with the route one stuff, I'm all for it. I like the fact that we can mix it up. I wish we could mix it up a wee bit more in terms of the midfield. As I say, it's something that I think, I don't know if it's just me that goes on about it too much, but when it comes to throw-ins, I think I actually said on here the last time we'd be as well just throwing it out for a goal kick and getting back and setting up in our shape. And then the next game we go on and score 2 goals for it. So that shows how much I know, to be fair. But I really, really good to see that side there and kind of mixing it up in the dark arts, if you like.
Absolutely. Now, the final goal, if we win this league, we'll probably look back on this moment just like we look back on Anthony Ralston scoring that goal up in Dingwall a couple of years back. 97 minutes, 2 of each. It almost looks like it's just not going to happen. Another throw-in, and this goes to Schwankara, who manages to control the ball, drags the defender out to the byline, and he cuts it back. And there's so much havoc in the Kilmarnock box. The defenders are all at sea, and nobody sees Araujo perfectly timing his run into the box, and he just sweeps it with his left foot into the top corner. Tattoo James, what was it like being in the crowd and seeing that?
Well, even you describing it, I'm at half mast. It was amazing. So it was amazing. I'd been talking to him. I was there. That was my son, and I'd been for 6 minutes. I'd been saying how, trying to convince myself how it wasn't a disaster dropping 2 points, because Rangers and Hearts were playing later on, and blah blah blah, and this could happen and that could happen, and it really didn't change. Blah, and I was talking nonsense. It was more to convince myself, because although we had an awful lot of pressure, and I believe that the reason why the command defenders were at sea is because we had put them under a lot of pressure for the last 40 minutes of the game, and I think that was why they were all at sea because of that. And you're right, it ghosted in at the back post, and it was so we were like, so he came out, he ran to the right, we were off just to the left, and it was outstanding. It was I wasn't in the same seat after the game as I was before the goal. I was about 4 rows in front. It reminded me of, because like, I'm an older guy, and I was at the Dundee United game where with the temporary stand when we scored 2 goals in the last 90 seconds to get through in the Scottish Cup.
Was that Andy Tom who scored the final?
Scored the second goal. He scored the second goal. What a strike! So in the temporary stand, I ended up about 6 rows further forward than I was when we scored, because it was just pandemonium. I think our best back four now, which is it's obviously Arujo, Trusty, Scales, and Sabachi. Although I think when Tierney plays and he is playing well, I think we play well, but unfortunately his playing well games aren't as frequent as I would like them. He's not as consistent as I would like. But when he's on his game, I think Celtic look a far better team when he's on his game. And what James said about Oxlade-Chamberlain, when he came on, I think it gave a lot more balance to our midfield, and I think our midfield actually functioned as a 3, because in Grin, God love him, he's not going to come back and tackle. He's not going to come back and pick the. You kind of want him to be just sitting around about the edge of the box, ready to ghost in and get something, because he does that well, and he will score goals. But I think it was all right with Engels, and I know Engels isn't everybody's cup of tea. I think the boys get so much potential, but I think Oxlade-Chamberlain is going to, if we can get him fit to be playing full games, I think that it'd be a definite benefit for the run in, because you're playing with somebody with that much experience that wants to win a league title, and I think him and McGregor in a midfield with Grin in the front of the 3 would be. I know maybe confidence is not the right word, but I'd be happier with that.
Yeah. Well, kind of similarly like how I expressed myself whenever we signed Kasper Schmeichel, where I was quite critical, dismissive of the idea of bringing in Kasper Schmeichel, and then he proved me wrong, certainly first season. I was equally dismissive of the rumour when I heard about Oxlade-Chamberlain. I felt, that the guy was a great player. Where has he been? And then I heard he's not been playing for 6 months. He was let go by his club team. But the guy's obviously get quality, so it's just about can he go up to speed? Can he make a difference? He's obviously won us a game at Parkhead at Livingston against Livingston. So if he can go up to speed, he's going to be a massive asset. And then the potential of extending his deal to next season. I don't want to get ahead of yourselves here, but we could have made a worse signing than Oxlade-Chamberlain. Guys get experience, guys get quality. He's probably calmer than most players on that park. So let's see what happens. James, can I still talking about the midfield? Obviously, Engels is out right now. I think Martin O'Neill said he's going to be out for 6 weeks. So there's a place up for grabs. What type of impact does Nygren and Hatate have on Callum McGregor's game?
Well, I don't think they can play together, the 3 of them. You're literally leaving it all on McGregor to do the donkey work, the defensive side of it.
And I think you're right. He becomes even more conservative because he can't trust his 2 teammates, whereas Oxlade might bring some stability.
Aye, that's it, exactly. And it was the same with Engels as well. When Engels was there, he would kind of sit beside McGregor in the kind of bigger games, and I think that was where he played his best stuff, to be honest with you. But aye, that first half, it was literally just McGregor drap him in between the two centre backs, essentially playing as a third centre back, getting the ball, and then having nobody he passed to. There was just no movement in the team at all, and it just seemed to be work it out to the fullback. He'll try and clip it up the line, and then they would get clattered and would lose it. The midfield is going to be an issue. I even think with Oxlade-Chamberlain coming in, I don't think it's going to solve the problem. I think the problem is still there. Obviously, Oxlade-Chamberlain's going to be out for Thursday night. He's not in the pool, so it genuinely could be names out of hat to see who takes that third spot in the midfield. And probably the same again at the weekend as well, because as much as Oxlade-Chamberlain, they played, 52 minutes, if it were. And he looked good, but I still don't know if he'd be ready to play kind of 2 or 3 games a week for 90 minutes. So we are going to have that issue. But again, it just all goes back to the recruitment. Like, normally you would have somebody else to come in there and it wouldn't be as big an issue. In the past, the guy, it's been Bernardo when he was here on loan, and then even last year it was McKibben, and Hatate was obviously a kind of starting midfielder. But as I say, these guys are there has-beens or have-never-beens, and we're still relying on them time after time, and it's due to poor recruitment. I think the recruitment, in terms of who we signed on loan in January, I know there was people saying it improved the team, but in some aspects it did. It improved the forward line, certainly in terms of the striker position, but that was purely because we didn't have a striker. But then you've got Mvuka, who, similar to Barry Quisha, as we said on here, you looked at his highlights and you weren't convinced, and then he comes in and looks exactly as he did in his highlights.
Yeah.
He signed a guy for Brentford. I think we were all screaming out, like we've seen, I like Trusty, but he's got games like that. It's not the first time and it will not be the last. So I was wanting a centre-half to come in and really compete for that third place. And we've signed a guy who has replaced our fourth choice centre-half. So I think it is going to be like this. I don't think, normally I'd be saying I think that will be a game changer, the way the game went, the scenes at the end and everything, but I just don't trust this squad enough. There is wee bits of quality kind of littered through it, but I think by and large it's pretty subpar, and obviously with the amount of games we've got coming up as well. It's exciting, but obviously being close, but it's going to be really difficult.
I think it is kind of like exciting, but at the same time, like, it's really no good for your heart. I don't remember being like this. Like the first 2 seasons under Ange and the first 2 seasons under Brendan Rodgers, I was never going into a game thinking, can we win this? I was never going into that. I was expecting us to win it, and I'm like, there's a chance we might not. There's a chance we might drop points, but we're probably going to win. I do not feel that confidence going into games now, and it's not a reflection of Mark Neal. It's just what we've done with the playing squad, how we've kind of downgraded, how we've been like drink driving at the wheel to find ourselves in this situation. But before we get to further talking points, just want to go back to the game itself for ref watch. So the Kilmarnock had a free kick, which we did speak about, but it was the giving of the free kick which was wrong. So Kilmarnock were attacking. I don't know, was it Oxlade-Chamberlain who gave the ball away? That might have been a different incident where he just kind of get, I don't know, naive. He gave the ball away. He never expected a challenge. That might have been a different incident, but it was the guy where it was the moment in the second half where Kilmarnock player is bearing down on our goal, still in front of our defence. Cam McGregor gets back, and McGregor, to his credit, successfully makes a good defensive midfield challenge. He pokes the ball away from the attacker before he manages to kick it, and the referee, he was behind the play and he blows a free kick in a very, very dangerous situation, and he has the temerity to give Cam McGregor a yellow card. Whenever you see it in the replay, you just know it was just the wrong call on both counts. And obviously the boy smacks off the bar, and he looked confident when he stepped up. You know, that could easily we could have lost all the points because of that. VAR's never going to overturn that. I was raging at that. I guess the replays show that the referee was in the wrong. you guys would have been at the opposite end of the pitch, but whenever you saw it back, like that big lanky cunt as the referee, I just can't stand him anyway. But
no,
yeah, a big decision.
I think I said in the group chat, it'll be another, because it seems to be week in, week out, we're getting these kind of referee performances. We had 2 penalties in that game as well. There was 2 handballs. One of them was almost like, was it Finn Russell's pass in the Scotland England game? One of them, it was up off his head and he palmed it. It's just as stonewall a penalty as you'll see in your life. Then the other handball, I think it was, he blocked an Oxlade-Chamberlain shot with his arm, and his arm was away out here. That free kick, there was countless. I think this season has been by far the worst. I think Rangers must need to win the league, because this season has been unbelievable. That's how I see it. Again, I couldn't see it from where, but when I've seen the replays yet, McGregor takes the ball clear. He takes the ball clear.
It was a perfectly. We criticised for McGregor for not doing that side of the game, but he got back, he made the perfect tackle, but still the referee just being incompetent. And as I said, the injustice, if it did go in, we had no recourse to reverse that decision. And the penalty, I never saw the other penalty where he used the elbow, but I've heard that there was 2 penalty calls. But the one where he used his hand to just like volleyball it, that was ridiculous. Like, that was so obvious. And I do not know how VAR couldn't intervene with that. It was little James. I take it you saw it back.
Aye, I'm the same. Like you say, I think the one with the shot would have been harsh if I'm being honest, but I think the one with his horn-ups are still more penalty. Like you say, that is the reason that VAR's there. I mean, God knows we've seen us give enough kind of daft horn balls against us for us to know that that's a penalty. But just with the referees, see the thing that really irritates me, and it wasn't just kind of exclusive to the game at the weekend, but see the time wasting with the goalkeepers.
Yeah.
It just seems to be impossible for a goalie to get booked for time wasting now. If it's a parkhead and it's at nothing each, they're doing it for a kick-off. Fair enough, if you came for a point, fair dues, that's your thing. But it's when the referee, it's like, this is your 87th and final warning, and it's like, can we not just book him? If you book him, he's not going to do it again, he's going to go home with the game. But it's like, if you book him, then he gives himself a decision to make later in the game. And it's like, let's just go on with it. And it was the same with this new, is it 8? The count to 8. You get 8 seconds, aye. And you seen him doing it at the game, and it's like 5, 5 and a quarter, 5 and a half, and you're like, what are we doing, man? Can we just play it as it should have been? But aye, that's as I say, it's the thing that really irritates me. And it was the Dundee game last week. I noticed that, as I say, the Dundee goalie was at it constantly, and you're like, right, fair enough. Like, you're in the lead. If I was in your position, it was us away in Europe. I've said often enough, that's something I'd be desperate for us to be good at, keeping the ball at the corner flag, time wasting, getting down, feigning injury. It's all part of the game. Fair enough. It's up to the ref to be strong and obviously deal with it. But it was the Dundee goalie done it the full game, and then when we go 2-1 up extra time, Schmeichel takes his time with a goal kick, and right away, move. But like, what is going on here, man? So, aye, that's just a bugbear in general we mind with football now.
James, somebody was giving you a compliment for your enviable attic man cave. Can I ask you, you've got a lot of football memorabilia. Obviously, we won't give away your address, so you're safe. What's your most prized possession in the man cave?
I've got a couple of bits actually behind me here. I've got a few things.
That's in front of you.
Aye, it's behind you. I've got a Billy McNeil signed picture, Tommy Gemmell. I've got this, I'll grab this as well. This is 1933.
Wow.
This wee thing, it's actually like a wee doily thing. I don't know, is that
McGrory? No, wouldn't it be 33?
James McGrory, aye. But aye, apparently they were gave it at Parkhead away back in the day. It's about my great grandpa or something. So aye, and then there's I've got a wee 6 in a row shield. That's at the door there for when they've done the original 9 in a row, which is quite cool and all. But that's definitely the oldest. But all my Henrik Larsson stuff's there, so I've got to go with my Henrik Larsson stuff.
Awesome. And for some people, they've just got a mini fridge in the attic, you know. Well. Hey, Look, there's a couple of other things that I want to run through. However, just a change of tact. Now, James, Tattoo James, obviously you are fairly new to the podcast, and it's good to kind of get some people's perspective on being a Celtic fan, their own kind of memories and things like that. So this is a kind of a quick fire question. So just going to go through some kind of like typical Celtic questions as a Celtic fan. Nothing complicated, nothing to catch you out, just to kind of find out your memories and favourite, least favourite, such and such, players' memories, that sort of thing. So we'll take it as it goes. What's your first Celtic memory?
Celtic versus Partick Thistle, 1983-84.
I thought you were going to say you were dishing them out in 1933 there. So
I'm not quite that old. I'm not quite that old. I can't remember a lot about the game because I got lifted over. I got lifted over, so I can't remember much about it. Originally I come from not far from Celtic Park, and I used to go up on a Saturday afternoon and just wait until somebody asked me to carry their bottle of Buckfast into the jungle, and then they would just lift me over the turnstile. So that's kind of where
Do you remember the result?
We won, and it was a high scoring game. I can't remember the full result, but it was a high scoring game.
1980 Cup final for Smell the Glove. Right, okay, favourite Celtic captain?
So obviously I'm not old enough to have seen McNeil, but so it would probably be Paul McStay.
Paul McStay. What was your biggest heartbreak besides Seville?
Helicopter Sunday.
Say no more. Who was your boyhood hero?
Roy Aitken.
Good. Best European night?
Against Blackburn, down in Blackburn.
Were you at that one?
Mm-hmm. Against Blackburn, down in Blackburn, after the men against boys thing for Souness, and then I was just absolutely schooling them down in Ewood.
And we had a full stand
for that game there.
Aye.
Got that signed with Chris Sutton right on my shoulder.
Outstanding. So that was, that was a great year. That was a great year. But to me, the Blackburn game was just beating Souness in his own backyard was just.
Hold on, were you at Anfield as well though?
No.
Right, okay.
No.
Right. Most memorable title win?
So the obvious answer to that would be Wim. Because it stopped them winning 10. It was our last day of the season. We had Henrik Larsson. It was a great team. But I'm probably going to say Ange's first season because everybody had written him off, and people before around about Halloween, October, knives were out for him, and then he had that win against Aberdeen where Jota scored in the last 6-7 minutes, and then we kind of went in that run, including the game you spoke about earlier, the Anthony Ralston Ross County 96 minute absolute bedlam, and then obviously the beating Dundee United, and then obviously winning the game get postponed and getting Maeda and Hatate in, and game getting postponed. So that was outstanding. So it's hard to say stop the 10, but that would have been the obvious answer.
Okay. So, best Celtic goalkeeper?
So Boric. Boric was the one that, see what you're talking about. Boric chose violence every day, and you just, he's cleaning people. He would have cleaned out scales to get that in Sunday. So Boric for me. I like Forster as well, but Boric.
Definitely. What's your favourite formation? Are you a 4-4-2 man?
No, I think 4-4-2. 4-4-2 is so easy to play against. It would be 4-3-3. It would be 4-3-3.
Was it the Dutch or the Brazilians who invented 4-3-3? I know that
I thought it was the Dutch.
I thought
it was that Dutch team at 74, Johan Cruyff. I thought that was the name that started 4-3-3.
Because I thought that Brazil in 1970 played 4-3-3, but I'm not too sure. Right, okay. Best foreign import besides Henrik?
Lubomir Moravcik. I think the Daily Record called him a dud Czech when we signed him. And Lubomir was just different gravy. Different gravy.
Not Nancy's formation anyway. Right, okay. Your 3 Celtic dinner guests, alive or dead?
Bertie Auld. Gemmell.
Gemmell? Why Gemmell?
Because he was just an absolute. Did you listen to him speaking?
Really?
Yeah. So I used to work for Willie Hockey's firm.
Right.
And lots of ex-Celtic players' family worked in there. And Gemmell's niece worked in there. Tommy Gemmell's niece worked in there. And see, when he was round about, he just held the room. It was like it's like he didn't have Bertie Auld's charisma, because Bertie Auld just was the charisma ripped out of him, absolutely ripped out of him. But Tommy Gemmell, he held the room when he started talking. He just held the room. It was amazing to listen to him. And I mean, I don't want to come out Uber or anything like that, but Jim Craig was my dentist until he retired. You know, I only moved to Renfrew so that I could have Jim Craig as my dentist. So I and my third, it would probably be McStay. It would probably be McStay, because I know he's not got the same charisma as well, but the guy was a Celtic legend, and he carried us through the years. He could have left and went to play at a much and won things, but he stayed with us and he helped us through things. So it would probably be McStay. McAvenny is a good shout, because he would have been a drunken night. But,
that's a good one about Tommy Gemmell, because I've never heard. I couldn't recall any interviews with Tommy Gemmell, and I certainly never heard anyone say like that he was an interesting speaker. Maybe not the charisma wise, but an interesting speaker. So I've never heard that one. So I'm glad that you said his name. Okay, favourite Celtic away shirt?
So again, the original Bumblebee kit would be the obvious. I've got an original People's board, which I sometimes break out, and I almost put on the yellow chevron kit tonight, for about 1990. Probably the original Bumbles.
Yeah.
I think I went to my Instagram reel the other day with Larson scoring wearing the original Bumbles, and it was erotic.
Right, most underrated Celtic player?
It's not going to be popular, but
Craig Gordon?
Rio
Hatate. No, so he's not a first team starter, and he never should be a first team starter. But I don't like Anthony Ralston getting slated. Listen, is he? No, but you know what? He's 100% every time he pulls that jersey on. He'll play left back, right back, even play back in a back three. He'll play wherever he's asked to play. He's 100%. He's no good enough, but that's.
I think you misunderstood the question.
In fairness to him, that is one thing I'll give him. He is very, very, very fucking trying. So you're absolutely right in that one.
Right, okay. Almost at the end. Right, okay. You need to be honest with this one.
Oh no.
Which Rangers player did you fear the most?
Brian Laudrup.
Yeah. And which opponent did you love to hate?
Gascoigne.
Right, and final question. Toughest Celtic player? Not toughest to watch, like Anthony Ralston, but just toughest Celtic.
toughest. Scott Brown.
Scott Brown, yeah.
What's your best European night, Giff? You can't say Barcelona, that's a cheat.
Juventus 4-3 at Parkhead. Yeah. And whenever we're talking about I remember. So I was like, I don't know. I can't mind what age I was, but like maybe an early teenager. And I remember being in the car driving to Parkhead, me and my dad and my neighbour and his son, and we've got the super scoreboard on, and they're talking about the game before obviously it kicks off. And this was before the time of giant killings in my lifetime at Parkhead. This was before Fortress Parkhead really started. And I remember Hugh Keevans saying Celtic are never going to win this game. They're playing against world-class players. People are just happy to see Del Piero and Trezeguet and all of them. But this is not a game that Celtic can win. They're just playing against European supergiants. And we competed, and we earned the right to play in that park. And we scored some beautiful goals. And Moravcik played the game of his Celtic career in that particular game. It was the first time I'd ever witnessed Celtic deserve to be on the same stage as those players in the flesh. And Larsson, Hendrick, Petrov, the giants at the back, Moravcik, Lambert, Lenny. It was just an emotional night. I've never known that type of electricity for a midweek game for a Celtic fan. It was just brilliant. It was brilliant. I couldn't top that. Yeah.
And as the kind of kit aficionado, what's our best away kit?
The pinstripes, the original pinstripes from the early 90s.
See, I had that in my head. I had that in my head. No sponsor, because obviously the first year we never had a sponsor on it because we'd left C.R. Smith and we got a new sponsor. But my memory of that is Stuart Slater, so I couldn't possibly have gave that as my favourite Celtic away kit. We've all got a player that we associate with a kit.
I think that's my unpopular opinion when it comes to Celtic, is that I think the Bumblebee under Nike, the remake, was better than the original. Just as a kit, I know you associate it with Larsson, and I think the Bumblebee was that under Mowbray, the Nike one. We had that for a couple of seasons, didn't we? It was across a couple of sponsors, but I prefer the Nike one to the original.
Yeah,
that's my problem. My problem is that I associate kits with players. So when you say a kit, then I think of the kit, but I think of a player in it, and that black pinstripe kit, because I believe it was advertised as jade, black and jade, just makes me think of Stuart Slater, and I come out in hives and like PTSD.
Well, it's funny enough when you say that. When I'm thinking back to that Nike Bumblebee kit, I'm getting Landry Nguemo and Mark Crosa, so maybe we'll revise my opinion.
Aye, it's and so my son and I, we sometimes have that, and we'll be sitting and like he'll just say, I'm actually looking at it now. I'm looking at something behind me, and it's the Celtic jersey by Paul John Dyke's book, and it's like you open it up and you look at a jersey, and it's like the first player that comes to your mind, and it's aye.
Mm-hmm. The first player that comes to mind for this one, for me, Van Hooijdonk. What about you, Tattoo James?
Aye, probably Van Hooijdonk. With Van Hooijdonk, I was going to say something else, but no, Van Hooijdonk is my first name that comes into my head. That's a cult classic. That kit, it's a cult classic. I hated it at the time, but cult classic.
Was it a fan design? Because did Celtic, the club, not put out a competition for like fan designs, and somebody, a Celtic fan, wrote in with and they drew a kind of design similar to this, and they manufactured it. Is that true?
Surely if a Celtic fan designed a kit, it would be like camouflage with arm lights in the back and things like
that. You never know. Right, getting back to a few more kind of current talking points. The fullbacks right now are the talk of the town, I think, for Celtic fans. Sirachi and Araujo. Speaking of Araujo, is Araujo showing levels of performance that Alistair Johnson hasn't reached in a Celtic shirt, Little James?
Nah, I think that's maybe recency bias and probably doing Johnson a disservice. Look,
Okay.
Araujo's been brilliant, and as I think we said the last time, if Alistair Johnson was fit the Mora, I'd be keeping Araujo in the team. But I think that's probably a wee bit unfair on Johnson. He's been brilliant for us as well. But I'd be taking the both of them all day long. What a competition that would be. And if we can get rid of the underrated Tony Ralston, then we've went up a fair few levels. I think for Araujo and Johnson, that's always been my kind of gripe with Ralston. To be honest, when folks say he's happy to be a backup, for me that just means that he's never going to be the guy. And if there is a long term injury, he can't be trusted, and that is exactly what's happened this season. There's been a long term injury. He's come in, proven himself no good enough, and then we've went out and got Araujo to come in, and it's night and day. So I'd definitely be signing them both up. And I think the other side's probably the bigger question, because they are both fit, and I think you could argue that Sriracha on merit arguably takes the jersey. It's a close race because Tierney has come on to a wee bit of a game recently, but yeah, that's probably the better argument, I think, at the other side.
Right, well, Tattoo James, you were talking about that, so you go for Sriracha.
I totally agree. I think Sriracha's been he's been really good. I think the left side is closer because obviously Arahu's against underrated Ralston, but I think that Stephen, what I'll say is I think Stephen Tierney plays and he's putting in an 8 or a 9 out of 10. Celtic play, the best games we have played so far this season is keeping games where Tierney has performed at the level that we know he can. I think that Sriracha looked really good. Sriracha looked really good again when he came on Sunday. Sorry. I think Araujo is awesome, and he's got a cracking back tattoo. Right, a cracking back tattoo.
I saw a picture of it today. I think.
Son of immigrants. Son of immigrants. It says. So that's another reason why I love Sriracha. But yeah, I think Johnson, Alistair Johnson's I think he's a cracking player. I think he's a cracking player, Alistair Johnson. He's hard as nails. He gives everything. I really like him. I think Araujo, he played brilliant. He's played brilliant when he's come on. He's played brilliant since he came to us. I think he'd have been a disaster under Nancy because he's nowhere near a right-sided centre back. Although Nancy would probably have played him in the left. I don't know what, but yeah, I'd try and sign both of them. But I don't know if our board would sanction having 4 30-grand fullbacks. 4 30-grand fullbacks.
I would love for our reality to exist where we are the type of club where we can have both Alistair Johnson and Araujo as our 2 right backs and they can fight it out. I just don't think that's going to happen. I don't think we could last the full season with both of those players in our books. One of them would have to go. I know that maybe that sounds like pessimism, or maybe it's realism.
No, you're right, and that's why I agree with. I disagree with James. I know Ralston isn't good enough, but we are not going to keep 2 players like Araujo and Johnson happy because we are going. We need to have a drop off between what we're for, and it is pessimistic, and it makes me feel sick that I'm saying we need a slightly worse player, because if Araujo is, and I've pronounced his name about 9 different ways so far tonight, right? If he's playing in the right, then Alistair Johnson's on the bench, and he's only getting 20 minutes every now and again, and he's not going to be happy with that. He's a Canadian international. He's going to want to leave, and vice versa the same. Whereas you've got Anthony Ralston, who is perfectly serviceable for 15 minutes here and 20 minutes there. But he's not good enough, as you rightly say. He's not good enough for a prolonged spell. He's not good enough to be getting game after game. I'm totally on board with that. I don't think he's good enough at all. But I can't see how we fit 2 real quality fullbacks in there.
I just think with Tony Ralston, honestly, I just don't rate him. I think he was good for a wee bit under Postecoglou and get a new deal off the back yet, and I think that's been a massive problem at the club. I mean, we've just gave Johnny Kenny a long-term deal, and was it in the summer just past?
Aye.
We've done a similar with Liam Scales, who, to be fair, is a wee bit different in terms of performance level and the amount of games he's played. But honestly, I think you could probably go out and sign any other right back in the league to come in and do the job that Ralston does. Like you say, 10, 15 minutes here and there, absolutely fine, the issue with it. But that's kind of ideal world scenario, like you're saying. Johnson obviously long-term injured, and then you're relying on Ralston coming in, which has since seen the kind of emergence of Donovan, and then obviously going out and signing Araujo. So, I just don't think he's good enough, to be honest, to even be the backup. I think this season's kind of proven it a wee bit, to be honest. I get that he's a Celtic supporter and all the rest of it, and he's come through the academy, but I think if you take the kind of sentimental side of it, it just isn't good enough. I mean, you think back, it was like Lustig and Adam Matthews, two quality players, quality operators, and it kind of worked there. And Anthony Ralston's been here for, it must be just testimonial.
Lustig and Matthews in the right back, and left back Izagiri and Tierney.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say more. It was favourable back then. You know, the first choice and the reserves.
Aye.
One other thing on the right backs. Smell the glove here. I've not given up on Donovan yet. I would like to see him a full year on loan at an Aberdeen or Hibs next season. I absolutely agree. There's just something about Donovan. Well, he kind of, I don't know if it's because of the socks down at the ankles, but he kind of looks like a kind of throwback player. And you see, if we were to play Ibrox tomorrow or back in the capital against Hearts, I would actually play Ralston over Donovan in that environment. But I think for the long term, Donovan clearly for me has a higher ceiling, and if we can nurture that and give him the right placement, then we might reap the dividends of that. I don't want to see Donovan leave us and go on to have a decent career. I think he's got something in him, but not right now.
100%, and he was thrown under the bus by Rodgers in the first Hearts game of the season, where he played Donovan and Murray in the right hand side,
right.
which totally it just totally left the two of the boys open, and I think Donovan really suffered for that. So I 100% agreed. Yeah, Hibs or an Aberdeen, get the boy get 30 games under the season. That's how he's going to learn. He's going to learn by playing 30 games in a season, 40 games in a season. He needs to go out and loan. And I agree. I think the boy has got undoubted talent. I think he's, but you're not going to know that getting on 15 minutes here and 15 minutes there.
Yeah, and I guess maybe final question on the fullbacks. Would any of you be interested in trying to get Robertson on a free?
I think he's done. He's undoubtedly a quality player, but do we really need two 30-plus-year-old fullbacks?
And Robbo, is Tierney not about 28 and Robbo's about 31, is that right?
Aye, Robbo's in his 30s. He's in his 30s. And listen, he was an absolute quality fullback in his day. And could he manage it in Scotland? Probably, but are we going to get two games a week at him at the business end of the season when the pitches are heavy and he's got absolute cloggers going through him? I don't know.
Right. I think the ideal scenario is you've got your top fullback, and then you've got a young guy who's got undoubted promise, and the goal for him is to eventually get better, and he'll oust the current fullback whenever he gets his big move. That's the kind of trajectory that you want.
I know, it's exactly what you and James were talking about 2 minutes ago when we had Izagiri and Tierney, and we had Lustig and Matthews. Matthews and Tierney were two young boys, and they were pushing. They pushed Izagiri and they pushed Lustig, and they got games and they got minutes and they got everything, and so so you do want a young boy that's hungry and that wants it. It doesn't have to be somebody that's come through our academy, but it can be somebody that we buy. But that is the ideal trajectory, and that's what our business model has supposedly been. That we go out and we scout these young players, and they come in and they develop, and then we sell this guy, and then this young player comes in and takes. That's what a player trading model is supposed to be. But what we've been doing is it's a car crash. An absolute car crash. And I think I'm quite a positive and optimistic person, and this season has just nearly killed me.
It's been difficult. It has been. Right, before we go into the upcoming games, I guess maybe one final question about the playing squad. Do we give the jersey now to Chvanchara, or do we continue to alternate at centre forward, horses for courses? For example, that type of game that we played there at Rugby Park, you don't have much space in behind. Maybe a guy to cause a bit of havoc, hold the play up, whatever. Chvanchara, it looked good for him whenever he came on. Maybe a game at Parkhead, wherever teams might come out, like Hibs normally do. Maybe when we're playing Rangers, maybe when we're playing Hearts, when they've got a bit of confidence, or Motherwell. Would you maybe go for a player like Adamu, who's got a bit of pace, who can run in behind? Or for the time being, is it just Chvanchara because he's actually contributing more than other people? Any of you want to take that one?
I think it's going to be Chvanchara for the time being, but I think we're forgetting about Iheanacho as well. He seems to be kind of well out the picture now. But
is it fitness? Is it an attitude problem?
He's looked all right when he's played. I know we'll go back to the cup final and stuff like that, but I think it's going to be Chvanchara, just like you said, just because he's contributing. And obviously after the back of the weekend, they'll hopefully have a wee bit of confidence. And I seen an interview, well, I didn't see it, I read it, that he was saying that he was looking for a permanent move here already. He's just in the door, so hopefully he's out to impress.
It would be Chvanchara for me, because he looks as if he's doing something. He looks as if, see when he's there, he always looks as if he's into it. He gets in about it. He causes havoc. I know he scored the goal in the last minute, Adamu, but apart from that, I don't think he's really contributed that much. That might be harsh because, as James said, he got absolutely no service in the first half against Kilmarnock. Absolutely none. He was, but Chvanchara would be my choice first, maybe my first choice for centre forward.
Do you think there's any chance we'll ever see the two of them together?
See, it's Martin O'Neill, and Martin O'Neill loved that. Back in the day, he loved that two forwards, Larson, Sutton, Larson, Hartson, Sean Maloney, who I'll never forgive for taking the free kick. He should have let Alan Thompson take the free kick. I think you might see it, especially towards the end if we're chasing results. I think I seen an article. I read an article earlier in the week, and XG and stats aren't everything, but they are something. There's something that you should look at. No, based as your whole thing on, but you should look at them. And an AI model had modelled our stats, Heart stats, and Ranger stats, and 83% of the time we win the league. And there you go.
McGinty will love that.
Aye, unfortunately, AI and stats isn't what wins the league. It's scoring goals and no conceding them. But it was quite interesting.
Right, I promise I won't go into the upcoming fixtures. We're kind of wrapping up now. One other question, which I did actually want to ask you, Little James, have you noticed any change whatsoever between the first stint under Martin O'Neill and now the second stint? Now, the first stint, people at Rio Hatate were playing games and doing well. There was a reliance on people like Johnny Kenny as well. This time round, we were different. But just a couple of stats to kind of marry that up with what the eye test, okay? A couple of stats to give you. The first time round, we scored 12 goals. This is the league games, okay? We scored 12 goals and conceded 1 goal in 5 league games under Martin O'Neill. You will remember that Martin O'Neill, I think he had more games than that, but that was the league games alone. Scored 12, conceded 1. However, second time round in 6 league games, we've scored 15, but we've conceded 5. Obviously, 2 of them came at Parkhead against Hearts. Away against Hearts. We conceded against Kilmarnock twice, and we conceded to Livingston as well. It felt like under Martin O'Neill, first time round, like we had a few 4-0s. We beat Falkirk 4-0. We beat Rangers 3-1, albeit in the League Cup. We beat Kilmarnock 4-0 at Parkhead, and even a really good result against Feyenoord 3-1. Martin O'Neill, whenever he returned, we had another high-scoring game 4-0 against Dundee United at Parkhead. But it just seems like since then, every game has been very, very tight, apart from perhaps the Utrecht game, 4-2, albeit that had its jeopardy as well. I just feel that eye test alone, it felt like it was slightly more fluid and a wee bit more fun first time round with Martin O'Neill. But I don't know if it's because the pressure is ramped up. It just seems that we're eking out results more and more. It seems like we're less fluid, and it might even get more difficult now that Engels is injured, albeit we've now got in Araujo is contributing, Chvanchara is contributing, and who knows what Adamu and Vuka is going to bring to the table. If you were to compare and contrast, am I looking into it too much, do you think?
No, I think it's pretty similar, to be honest. Like, when he first came in, there was that wee kind of touch of nostalgia where you were sitting like, Martin O'Neill's in the dugout. Like, what year's this? And that kind of side there, and then obviously you get into the nitty gritty and like the League Cup as well. Like, really, that shouldn't have went to extra time. There's been kind of sketchy performances kind of throughout the season, like we were saying earlier. Like, you could genuinely count the good performances on one hand. Out with the games that you mentioned, I think we bet Falkirk in the Cup as well, possibly even under Rodgers, and we look good. But it's been unusual this season because it's been like Europe's, specifically away games, has been the welcome break for the league campaign, which is really, really unusual for Celtic in general. So no, I don't know if you can read too much into it because, like we say, like, this squad, we're essentially in the summer. We're walking into the summer where, due to a lack of foresight, preparation, whatever you want to call it, we're going to need essentially a full new team in the summer. We're relying on guys that are here on loan, guys that don't want to be here, or guys that aren't good enough. We've seen it under Rodgers, and it was dross. Martin O'Neill then came in, steadied his ship, hands it out to Wilfred Nancy, who done what he done. Aye. And then it's went back to Martin O'Neill, and that's where I think it's only natural with the level of performance that people will start to maybe not question him, but like, start to raise concerns. And for me, the only thing that I think you could point at Martin O'Neill and say you got that wrong, personally, I think was starting Hitati at the weekend. Outweigh that, I can't think anybody else I would rather have in. And when he first came in initially, I was like, what are we doing? The guy is barely managed in however long. And then within kind of a couple of press conferences with him, a couple of interviews, it kind of calms you and you're like, right, he's still got it. He's no the 73-year-old wee old man that seemed to be getting portrayed, the talk sport pundit, as I've seen as well. You're like, still got the wherewithal and the kind of nous, even at the weekend there. Just after wee things like the Araujo interview, I don't know if you've seen that, where at the end there, just a wee horn in the shoulder. And it's a kind of cutting comment. It's like serious, but done in a kind of a fashion that will keep them on side. And that it's things like that I like. Don't let them get too high. We've seen it with Callum Osmond after his goal against Rangers as well. Was it just wait till he becomes a good football player or whatever his words were? And it's just wee things like that. And I think that will make players kind of appreciate the situation that they're in, and that how serious it is and how far there is to go, and nothing's won yet. So I can't think anybody else, to be honest, that I'd rather have with this squad of players, because I don't think there would be anybody that would be able to get anything more out of them. And the fact that we've had three different people in the dugout, two of them have failed spectacularly. Granted, Rodgers had different issues at the club. Wilfred Nancy was an absolute bin fire, but twice you've had Martin O'Neill come in and have to close the gap on Hearts. And I know it's not closed yet, but still get the game in hand. But I think that was the same as when he left, when it was at 3 points for a game in hand when he held over the reins to Nancy.
3 points for a game in hand when he left, and Nancy killed it completely. I think, see if you take the command, and I'm going to add lots of caveats here, right? which I'm sorry, but if you take the Kilmarnock game out of the equation, I think he's only conceded one goal that wasn't a penalty, or we were doing it to 10 men, and that was the first goal against Hearts. Every other goal Martin O'Neill conceded until Sunday there, was against 10 men or a penalty. So I don't know. I think it's and I know we've had a couple of games either side each performance, but if you remember in his first performance, the St Mirren game was utterly turgid. The wonder strike for Callum McGregor in the 92nd minute or something like that. I think that I think that it's been a bit more disjointed, but as James said, I think Hatate on Saturday was a terrible mistake. But then maybe Bernardo and McCowan just undercutting the mustard in training, and he just didn't feel as if he had another option, didn't he, play Hatate? But Hatate was utterly dross, and that was, I'm not saying it's all Hatate's fault that we conceded 2 goals, but I think the midfield was getting a wee bit overrun because Callum McGregor was trying to carry everything himself, and as you said earlier, he gets more conservative the more pressure that's put on him. So, and so I think that Martin O'Neill's 2 stints, I don't think I'm in much different.
Aye, in total this season, Martin O'Neill played 18, won 15, drew 2, and lost 1. That's in all competitions. The 2 draws were Hearts, Celtic, and Bologna and Celtic. Still 2 very, very good draws. And obviously the loss was very, very early on to a good Michelin side. But focusing on the future now, we've got Celtic at home to Stuttgart on Thursday. And then the weekend, Celtic at home to Hibs. Stuttgart away follows that. Rangers away. Aberdeen away. And Rangers away. So 6 games, maybe we can get the 6 wins. James, what do you think? Is there any... So to tattoo, James, out of that, we obviously got Europa League, Celtic at home at Hibs, away to Rangers, and that's the league game. That's in the 1st of March, and we're away to Pittodrie, and then away to Ibrox for the Scottish Cup. For me, I've got my eye on, obviously every game's a must, especially the league, but I've got a feeling if we can go to Ibrox in the 1st of March and not lose, I know it's still early, but that sets us up very, very well for the league. So, what do you think?
I totally agree. I've said, and that's what I see when I said what I was talking about in that 6 minutes between 90 minutes and the goal. That was kind of my conversation up until before the game, and then since we won, I've been saying if we don't lose at Ibrox and we win our game in hand, I'm not saying we win the league. I'm not saying it's that, because there's still a long way to go, but I think we're in a better place. Whereas at 2 each, I'm saying to my son, if we can still win at Ibrox and then win at Pittodrie, and then everything will be back to. But I think now, no losing at Ibrox. I want us to win. That's 6 games, 6 wins, easy. Treble still on, right? So I'm down for it, but obviously that 1st of March game and then Pittodrie 3 days later, if we can draw or no lose and win, I think we could be no far up. Depending on goals scored and things like that, we could be top of the league in goals scored after that Pittodrie game if we get the results. Maybe a cheeky wee 2-0 against Hibs. Hearts collapse a wee bit against Falkirk. That'd be lovely. Win against Aberdeen, and that sets us up quite nicely for the run-in. I said this before in the last pod I did. We've got the easier of the 3 teams run-ins. We've got the easier of the 3 teams run-ins.
Aye, because we've got Motherwell at home. After that, those 6 games, we've got Motherwell at home, Dundee United away, Dundee away, and then St Mirren at home. Aye.
And then after the split, Rangers and Hearts have got to come to us after the split. Rangers have got to go to Tynecastle as well. So I think that I think we've got the easier. Hearts are next. Rangers will get the hardest running.
Yeah. But the media, of course, you know who they're bigging up. Even if we win our game in hand, they're still going to be bigging up the Huns. So look, it's shaping up to be, you know, for the neutral, for the media. It's a great league campaign, but it's almost like a kind of like a trapezium act. Whenever you expect people to fall, you know, when they're swinging on the rope, you keep expecting a mistake. But Celtic, no matter what jeopardy we go through in games, as we said, that league games under Martin O'Neill, played 11, won 10, and drawn 1. It's incredible. So I don't know if my heart can take it, but I'm willing to go through it if we can win the league. And James, as you said, like, who would you rather, apart from Martin O'Neill, to kind of guide us through this? Little James, final comments before we finish up for the evening. By the way, to everybody in the comments, thank you so much for persevering with us. Really enjoyed it. But Little James, final comments before we wrap it up for tonight.
I'll be a wee bit Debbie Doom merchant. I'll settle for a double. I'll take getting out to Stuttgart and then getting through in the Scottish. So I'll settle for a double. But no, just on what you're saying in terms of the running. I think I said in the group chat the other day, I don't think there's a team in FITBA that we could play that I would go into the game fully anticipating a win. For a side that in recent times have went life and death with Livingston at the bottom of the league twice. I think it's very dangerous to look any further ahead than, I know we've got Thursday, but in terms of the league, look any further ahead than Hibs, because I think that will be another really, really, really hard game. And then you go into a massive game at Ibrox. It's 3 teams that, I know Rangers obviously beat Hearts at the weekend, but by all accounts they were meant to be really poor at Fir Park, and Motherwell should have probably won.
So, they weren't that great against Hearts either.
And Hearts seem to be kind of faltering a wee bit as well. In recent weeks, they've been kind of, says us, they've been riding their luck. So it's 3 teams that probably aren't looking their best now. So hopefully, as I say, Hearts have kind of maybe had that wee bit of luck, that same had their defeat. Rangers have had their run of results and then stumbled at Fir Park. Hopefully that wee goal at Rugby Park can inspire us into finding a bit of form and actually getting performances together, because it's something that I don't think we've really done consistently at any point this season. So if we could date the new, then we might just sneak the treble after all.
Surely this is the turning point, you know, when we start to play good football. From David Grant, our squad has been so under par this season, their confidence has been knocked plenty. With Martin O'Neill in charge, we're lucky to have a guy of his experience, or the title would be over. And David Grant, in my zeal to defend Martin O'Neill at the weekend, I get blocked by the 20-minute times. Would you believe that? Would you believe it? I think everybody was emotional at the weekend. But anyway, right, guys, so we're going to wrap up for tonight. As I said, thank you for joining us. We will be back hopefully next Tuesday, and we'll have 2 games to talk about. From us, good night, God bless. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Cheerio.